Thank you.
It's been a while. Lots going on in our world. So we have a number of new folks with us. So this is the the Peterborough Community Task Force on Housing. And for those who are new to the group, we'll give you a chance in a minute to kind of introduce yourselves, and maybe we'll just do a quick go around. But this group has been meeting since last October, monthly. And our mission is really to create a community-wide process by which we engage with folks who live in Peterborough about issues related to housing. So, all right, so we've got a lot of background as folks are getting on, so we'll just deal.
Hey,
So,
Karen, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you suggest that everyone turn off their mic until they're ready to speak, that would really help.
That's great. So everybody, if you want to mute yourself.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you. Thanks, Joanne. That's fine. Okay. Great. Thank you all. So this task force is, the job of this task force as we established it is to create a community-wide process by which we will hear from our community on issues as they relate to our housing needs and wants, and thereby create a report of sorts of recommendations that would become part of the master plan document for housing for the town, and would then help to inform the process of writing zoning and as we plan for the next 10 years, basically. So we were meeting in person until January, and our work really does follow 3 threads as we do it. One is a very strong emphasis on connection and being connected to each other at the level of being people and members of the same community. The second has to do with expanding our knowledge base around issues as they relate to housing, and really coming to understand some common terms and what we're really dealing with. So that's a second track that we work on. And the third one has to do with community engagement and how we think about engaging our community and how we might pull together a process for that. Since we've been meeting by Zoom, which we started last month, or the beginning of this month, I don't remember, it's a month ago, we've decided that the way we can best use the Zoom meeting is to connect ourselves, to stay on the 2 tracks, which have to do with staying connected as people and as community, because we feel like that's important, and also working on our knowledge base. And so we'll be talking tonight about the 2 presentations that we were tasked with watching and then coming back to the group to have discussion. So that's kind of the overview. And what I'd like to do is just allow first start with the folks who are joining us for the first time tonight, to just give you a chance to introduce yourselves and just allow us to know what it is that attracts you to come to the task force tonight, so we can kind of have a sense of you and how long you've been in Peterborough, or something we should know about you. So if you don't mind doing that, we'd really appreciate it. So Jim, you, do I see Jim now?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Peggy now, so I can't.
Thank you. Okay, so would you start?
Sure. I'm Jim Van Valkenburg. I live up on Cheney Avenue. I've been here about 21 years now, and was in the area prior to that, but in another town, down in New Ipswich. But it's always been a focus. Peterborough has always been a focus of mine. You know, we've always been interested in the way the place feels and looks, and I just think it's such an attractive place. For decades it's been this way. So, and housing is a big issue, I think, for a lot of people, and it's certainly, you know, we struggled to afford a house initially, and then you go from a cheap house to a slightly nicer house and all that kind of thing. It's an interesting process that I think we all need to understand better, especially in the current day. I mean, 20 years is a long time, and there's been a lot of changes. So I'm very interested to learn more.
Thank you. Okay, great. Storm, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So yeah, my name's Storm. I grew up in the area. I'm 25, but I've been coming back and forth between traveling and living in Peterborough at my parents' house, and also just living in the surrounding area for like 7 years. And one of the things that draws me to the area is there is a really awesome arts community, and just it's beautiful, and I would really love to be able to afford living in Peterborough, but it's just been really hard to find apartments that are, yeah, affordable for artists. And yeah, and I'm interested in finding a way of cooperatively owning a house, and doing some sort of intentional community or artist collective living situation. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Libby, we're getting a lot of, yeah, thank you for muting. Perfect. Okay. Sue Martin, you're joining for the first time tonight. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Sue Martin. I moved to Peterborough 10 years ago. I lived in New Boston for 20 or 30 years before that. And I'm just generally interested in community, how we build it, how we foster it, nurture it, and spatial relationships. And so I'm just curious to hear what you all are doing in terms of, or thinking in terms of how we are going to address housing.
Great. Okay. Perfect. So there are a lot of us on the call tonight. I want to just, I do want to just give us a chance to check in with each other just briefly, because part of what I feel is the most important thing for us is that connection. So I want to know how everybody's doing. So if I call your name, would you just kind of one sentence or two, just check in and just let the group know how you are and anything you want to say to us. Carl, you were on first. You want to go first? You got to take yourself off.
There you go, unmute.
Yeah.
Well, in really simple words, we're very, this is not at all desirable, but we are well with the circle of 6 that not all in my house, but one road over. So, it's just a really interesting situation from like day to day, figuring out what's coming next. So that's how I'm doing.
Thank you. Mark?
Okay, so the unmute is on. So I've been thinking that things are really changing. One thing that I realized, we used to come up to Wilton every summer and we knew all our neighbors in houses nearby, and quite a few of them were relative. So here in Peterborough, we wave to our neighbors, but we don't really know everyone who lives near us. So we're not, there's not the same kind of neighborhood that I, was sort of used to, actually from living in Manhattan, because we knew our neighbors and we talked to them and so on. So I, just want to see, there are some very interesting things I got from Economics of Development 202, and I'm looking forward to speaking about that.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Asking him.
Okay, thanks. Carol? Take yourself off mute. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Well, I feel good where I am, and I can talk to my neighbors, and we even meet sometimes at a distance. I'm just nervous about what it means for the world. I think it's a wake-up call, but I'm just nervous about what's going to happen in the future. But I feel good myself right now in this minute.
Thank you. Tyler?
Hi, yeah, I'm excited to be back to work, actually. We're carefully working on opposite ends of the house and everybody's masked and we're doing what we can. Our customers are expecting their their projects to carry on, so we're doing that. I'm happy to be doing that. Karen's still working from home and Oliver's trudging through his last couple weeks of his semester abroad in Berlin, up in his bedroom. I would like to point out during this, while we're all chatting about things, if you hover on the bottom of your screen and click on participants, it'll open up a panel on the side where you can then raise your hand if you'd like to speak, if we're all on mute, and then someone can monitor that and then pick whoever has a hand up to speak. So
Great. Okay,
good to see
thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, Tyler. Ivy?
Well, we're over here at 50 Summer Street doing just fine. I'm working remotely for the nonprofit that I've been working for since before the new year. Figuring out what we're going to do if we can't go to Frankenmuth, Michigan to teach people how to be small developers. How are we going to do that? Hugh's working from home. I've gone back to baking bread and I walk like it's my job.
I love that. Thank you. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Campbell. It says Karen on there, but that's my wife's computer. Karen and I are doing well. We're doing what most of you are doing. We're exercising, cooking, and tons of gardening. I guess my big thought now is trying to envision what Peterborough is going to look like. It's, obviously nothing we can project yet, but I'm concerned about our businesses and I'm concerned about our hospital. And, I don't really know what the future is going to bring, but I guess that's what I am a little bit distracted by.
Okay, thank you, Peter. James? Can you unmute? There you go.
James Kelly, I'm enjoying a number of Zoom meetings, including with my family all over the world, a dance event run by my daughter Alex, and then many committees and boards on Zoom. And my basic puzzle is just exactly what was just said. What's going to happen in our community in terms of the turnaround from this shutdown? And I think that's something we really have to work together very diligently on.
Thank you, James. Valerie? Unmute. There you go.
This is my husband's system. You can tell this is his studio. It says Frank Jenkins, but I'm Valerie and I'm fine. We are fine. I'm with Ivy. I walk like it's my job. I've been out in the garden and trying to learn as much as I can about this process. And I'm anxious to hear other people's thoughts about what our homework was.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is very familiar to me because I have a long history of municipal finance, but the planning stuff I know very little about. So I'm hoping to get some help from people.
Great.
I will mute.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hey.
Hey.
I'm fine. I have a lot of stuff I could say. I don't know. I'm fine. We're fine. We're so lucky to have what we have. I miss my siblings. They're all on the West Coast. One of them is about to be a dad for the first time in the next 2 weeks. And I know I won't get to see that for a while. But I'm fine. I'm not at all plugged into the work we were assigned. I'm just starting to come up for air. My own spring work was wiped out because I work for a film festival and everything's basically been canceled and we've been figuring that out and I'm good. We're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Stephanie?
Well, I think it sounds like I'm one of the only people who actually got COVID-19. And so I was sick for at least 4 weeks and pretty much couldn't do anything. But I never had a serious breathing problem. I think that that's the big thing that they talk about. And I am now okayed by the state to not quarantine, but of course I'm still wearing masks and going out as little as I can. So I, like Sarah, I've done some of I listened to one of the presentations, but not both. So, you know, I'm here to get back into it, hopefully. I feel like our new normal is not going to be anything like our old normal. And I'm confident that we can do it, but I'm not as concerned about COVID. It's not as scary as I thought it was after having had it. So.
Well, we're glad that you're better. Thank you. Yeah, Carter?
Yeah, just been kind of doing my thing, trying to keep up with everything that's going on with people's unemployment experiences. I mean, I've had my own, and I went through that whole process, but I'm still with that whole thing, and otherwise just stay entertained. And yeah, I did manage to catch both of the recommended pieces. I actually just updated earlier today, so I'm fresh on it.
Great.
And just looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Carter. Eddie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm doing good. I was pretty lethargic for the past like 4 or 5 weeks. But Emma and I just started a new workout routine this week, and it's really kind of helped our energy levels. And I only saw one presentation, but I thought it was a lot of good information, at least for me to start asking more detailed questions, which I'm excited about. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Kate?
Hey there. Excuse me. I'll start with the homework. I attended both of the things, 101 and 102. Loved them, found them fascinating, and did a little dip into Build Maine, which was a little harder for me to follow. And my good intentions were to review them today, and those good intentions did not come to pass. But I just want to put in a plug for everybody. Raise your hand if you've filled out your census. Okay, that's pretty good. I see some people who still need to do it. And so the incentive, Sarah, I see you hiding behind your hand, is do it. And I keep tracking the response rates, and every time 1 or 2 of my friends does it and then has another people do it, our percentage goes up. We're the highest percentage right now in the Conval towns, but that's not good enough. So anyway, so a little plug for census. I'm doing a lot of stuff with League and Open Democracy, and everything all hangs together. All of this hangs together. What is our future going to look like? What's our part in it? How are we shaping it? How are we being smart about it and compassionate? Ethics, justice. I don't know. That's what planning in some senses is about too. So how do we get through the short term and the longer term things? And it's daunting, but it's also kind of the work that we have in front of us. So.
Thanks,
Doing
Kate.
fine.
Very good. Thank you. Libby? You're still muted. Nope. Nope. We still can't hear you. We've lost your video and we don't have your audio. There's your video.
Unmute. There I am.
There you are.
My computer froze, so I'm doing this on my phone. I've never done that before. We're fine. We realize how extremely lucky we are personally to live where we live in this town, in this wonderful neighborhood. We have great neighbors who we talk to and see almost every day, distancing in some way or another, walking, just visiting on the street, in the yards. We walk a lot and we keep up with our kids, and we're doing some community stuff with Kate on census and some other stuff. And No, I mean, this life is much easier when you're healthy, retired, not trying to juggle job, educating little kids. I appreciate that. Like Peter, I worry very much about our hospital and how our downtown's going to look when we come out of this. And I also am getting increasingly worried about our postal system. That's going to be my new crusade.
Got it. Thank you. Joanne?
Well, hey, everyone. Good to see you. I'm going to first follow up on Kate's comment about the census. My primary occupation is as a planner. So, and you couldn't see me, but I was raising my hand. Yes, I did fill out the census. And in the meantime, working for a small local government, I am still fortunately employed full time, but it's been keeping me busy working and supporting my businesses in town in Jaffrey. And then I also teach part-time at Fitchburg State University. And we went online in early March, really March 6th. And that's been a challenge. And, you know, working with students who are primarily from Massachusetts, it's just been a challenge. And more than the teaching, just the human component of it has been really, really trying for me. So, so I'm still doing my job and a half, and I'm happy to jump in here. And I did do my homework, and true to form, I have some questions and comments on the assignment. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thanks. And Nicole.
Well, I'm happy to report that my family is all healthy, and for the most part, either working or at least getting unemployment. So they're doing good. And I'm busy, mostly working in the office down at the townhouse, but occasionally, like tonight, I'm working from home as well. So it's been a little bit of a mix, but we've been able to keep most of our staff safe. We've had a little bit of health issues, but for the most part, those have resolved without incident, and operations keep operating. So it's been good.
Thank you. And I'll just weigh in and say, generally, Mark and I are doing really well. I'm baking like crazy. I make bread and cake, and I'm also walking and hiking and doing Pilates by Zoom, which is good. And I have had some down moments. Sometimes life just feels too hard. And yesterday, my daughter, who's in Virginia, and I did a dance party on FaceTime to Walking on Sunshine because we just needed it. And so that was sweet. But I also just miss people and feel like this gets old, you know, it really gets old. So I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. I know that there may be some questions. I already know that I've gotten some questions about my new position with the town. And I did want to just cover that a little bit so that you all have the same information, if that is helpful. So Libby was the one who shot me an email with a number of questions. And I'll try to do this from my memory. So first to say that the position is not a temporary position. It is a restructured position there were two positions in the Office of Community Development, and that department has been restructured so that this new position of Community and Economic Development Coordinator is now up in administration, and that's the job I'm doing. And I am leaving Cornucopia, for those who are wondering. And that phase out will happen over the next several weeks with them. And you know, this move does not affect my being a select person because it's a part-time job. So I still have my responsibilities on the select board. The select board still operates as it does. And I report to Nicole in my new job, but the select board oversees the town administrator, and that's still the case. So those two things are a balance for me, but I'm very clear which is which. The work has already started. I haven't begun officially. I begin next Monday, but already I've been in touch with business owners having conversations about what they need. So that's the work. It's really, we thought that the bridge construction was going to be the big deal for our business community, but this is really the first of the 1-2 punch, this COVID pandemic. So helping our business community and our community at large navigate what is in front of us just feels so important, and I'm really honored to be able to help where I can. And that's what I'll be doing. It does not affect this work. We'll still be doing the task force, and I'll still have the role as chair, but now I'll be like Pete and Karen in one. So, something like that. So are there any questions about any of that? And if you
I just
do,
have a
James?
question about the census. Is that the federal?
Yes,
That was the federal census. Okay, I did that, yes.
you did. Okay, great. Good. All right. So anything about any of that? Are we good? Libby?
Yeah, Karen, I mean, this is just I don't know that I could do it. I'm just wondering how you do it, or how everybody gets comfortable with you reporting into Nicole on one hand and overseeing Nicole on the other. Nicole.
Well, the distinction is that the select board as a whole does that, and there are 3 members of it. So no one of us oversees any one of the town staff.
Okay.
And it's only Rodney, it's really town administrator, right? That the select board oversees. And then the rest of the staff is reporting to town administration.
Okay, and then the other question is your role now in this task force. Are you coming at this sort of as the select person? I mean, you're wearing 2 hats. It's I mean, you're wearing a developer hat, or a business developer, maybe isn't the right word, but a business generator hat, and you're wearing your select person hat. And I mean,
yeah, I think we all wear many hats. And I mostly come to this as a resident of Peterborough. And, you know.
We all do. And you'll be able to tread that carefully. You will, but I mean, more power to you if you want to take that on. That's, I mean.
Well, it's my intention. I mean, it's, I started the work not because I was a select person. Honestly, it was because I loved the town and I really wanted to see how we could do better as a town building community. So it happens that I have an elected position. Now I have a town position, right? A staff position, but neither of those are for me the most important thing. I think there's a role in facilitating the group that I have been doing. I will continue to do it. And now instead of going to Pete to make arrangements for what the meeting specifics look like, I go to myself or I talk to Nicole. You know, it's like, it's still the same work for me. It's just, I just have different other things I'm doing.
Okay. Carol Krause has her hand up.
Yeah, so what was Pete's job? I'm confused about that.
Well,
and you're taking part of what he did?
Nicole?
Yes, Pete was the Director of Planning and Community Development, which was not only he acting as a town planner, but he was also the community and business community liaison, working with them, working on things like business retention, outreach, connections with he supported the EDA, for instance, and provided support, staff support for those groups. He did work with the Conservation Commission and all that. It's a job that has gotten bigger and bigger over the last 20 years. to the point where it was becoming pretty unwieldy. So last year, was it last year or 2 years ago, we had created a planning assistant position, which was another full-time job. And then last winter, Kristen, who you may have met, left Peterborough and went to Manchester. And then shortly after that, Pete announced that he was going to be leaving Peterborough and going to Monadnock Conservancy. So it was a good opportunity for us to take a look at those two positions and to look at all the duties that those two positions were trying to accomplish, and see if maybe we could take those duties and rebalance them so that it made a bit more sense. Because when you look at what a town planner does, it's pretty technical. They're doing plan review, and I mean, I can't speak to this anywhere near as well as Joanne might be able to, but it's a lot more technical work. It's a lot of plan review, working with consultants, but also working with builders, homeowners to understand and work their way through zoning and other state and local regulations. And then community development and business and economic development, much different skill set, working with groups, making connections, doing large group facilitations, vision processes, and things a lot like what we're doing here. So it made sense to break those into two.
And who will Danica report to?
Danica will also report to me.
Okay, great.
All right,
Can we-
thank you guys. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
We're good on that?
Yep.
Good, let's move on. Okay. For those who are new to the group, we do operate, I'm just gonna share my screen for a minute here because, oh, I can't. Can you enable me?
Let me, hold on a second.
I just really I want to just share our group agreements because as we go into conversation on topics, just want to make sure that we all understand how we've agreed we will operate as a group. And I wanted to just pop those up on the screen quickly.
Yep. You should be able to now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And where did I put them? Oh, good, Karen. You're here somewhere. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for bearing with. And group agreements. Okay, no. Is that it? No, this one. Okay. Good. So just so the whole group has the same information, we're operating from the same base of agreements. We started, for those who haven't been with us, we started with an original list. It was quite long. And I will say that this is still a work in progress. We don't have it exactly where we want it, but it's close. But the original list is listed here on the screen. But primarily, if you look at the condensed version, what we have agreed to do as a group is to listen deeply to each other with full attention and open minds. That we will value everyone's personal experience and the gifts that each person brings to this process. That we will respect every member of the group and keep our conversations within the group. Question, we will ask a question when we don't understand or we feel challenged. Instead of attacking or we'll become curious about what it is we don't understand about someone's position or what they're sharing with us. We will also trust the process and each other. And we will assume goodwill. We will assume goodwill. We will be kind to each other. Does anyone want to add anything to that? I think that's primarily what we have agreed to do. Are we good? Any hands up, Nicole?
I don't see any.
Great. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and come back. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to talk a bit about the homework, and wherever you are with the homework, if you got to watch the presentations, if you watched them a while ago, if you watched one, if you watched both, if you watched them today, doesn't matter. The point here is that we'll have a conversation about what we saw and really the way, Nicole, you have this opportunity for us to do small groups. I wonder if we might try it. But as we have done in our big groups, you know how we go into our triads and have small conversations with each other? Zoom allows some of this. We want to test it tonight and see if it works. But what we want to do is use the questions that we posed originally to the group, which is after watching what you watched, what struck you? You know, what did you learn, and maybe what do you want to know more about? And using those kind of as the frame of the question, see if we can do small groups and then come back together and talk some more. So how does that work? Stand by.
Okay. So what I can do is I can automatically randomly assign 20 participants into 6 rooms. That gives us 3 to 4 in each room. I'm not sure how this is going to work for Eddie, since he's got video on one device and audio on another device. At least that's what it looks like here.
Yeah.
So his voice may end up in one place when his video may end up in another. So I will try to, if that happens, I may try to automatic, or I believe that's
Eddie,
you anyways. Is that you?
Eddie, can you put your audio on your computer? Let's see if that works. There it is. Yeah, great. You can disconnect your phone.
All right, let's
Does that look
try.
like you changed it?
You're on. Your audio is
Yeah,
working.
it sounds like it's working. Yep.
Did you disconnect your phone?
I changed the, it says select a microphone, and I changed it to back to the built-in microphone.
Okay.
Okay. The system is showing that your phone's still connected though. So I don't know if you're going to show up in 2 places. We'll see.
All right, let's see what happens.
Let's try it. Okay, let's try it. Good luck all. See you on the flip side. Nicole, we'll give people a warning. Will we be able to warn them to come back in?
Hope so.
All right. Stay tuned, guys.
I can broadcast. Yep.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. Where is he?
I think it said I was going back to the main. Maybe we should just.
You are back.
Oh, there we go.
All right, you're back.
Wow, first I was gone, now I'm back.
Wow, that was something.
That worked. I'm really excited.
Thank you,
Well done.
Nicole.
Well done, Nicole. All right.
Did everyone get the message that I broadcasted out the chat?
Yeah.
Did.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Good job. You got us out and in.
We don't have everybody back. Hang on. Joanne, where's Eddie?
Yeah, there was a countdown, so maybe a minute before everyone comes back in.
It's
but-
outside the spaceship.
I was going to say, I feel like I've been transported. Damn it, Jim.
Here we
I'm a
go.
doctor, not a bricklayer.
Here we go. Everybody's back. Well done.
Great.
All right.
Wow.
That was something.
You did it.
All right. So the way we've done our meetings is we go to small group and then we come back and we share out whatever someone feels like they want to bring to the whole group about what those conversations were. So do the hand raise thing. Nicole will moderate. How about that?
Get my participant list back up here.
Nicole,
There we are.
Nicole, congratulations on breaking us out and in again.
And bringing everyone back. Thank you.
Yes,
That was quite
yeah.
the
That was a nice trip.
good.
sort of like Outward Bound or something.
Yeah.
The first time I ever experienced that was in a mediation, and that was quite the experience. Kept bouncing in and out and in and out. It was, it was interesting.
Well, you did a very good job.
All right, not seeing anyone's hands up.
I can't figure out. I went to a couple of different screens to try to figure out how to raise my hand. I see chat and screen share and record and reactions. Is it in the chat room box, Nicole?
I believe it is. I have the host view though, so I'm not seeing the same thing you are.
Stephanie, do you want to share?
Yeah, I was interested in sharing a few things from our group. And one of those things was to point out that that it would be interesting for us to see in town versus out of town values for both retail and commercial property. Retail, commercial, and living home properties. It might be an interesting thing for us to look at. Joanne pointed out that New Hampshire doesn't have much control over our tax structure. And so, you know, a lot of the information in these were really talking about towns and government structures that are much larger than us, and hopefully they have, I don't know if they have more control, but that the assessed value in each town is different, and it's hard for us to control it, but so, you know, those are a couple of things that came up.
Thank you.
It is pretty complicated. I can see if I can find that data though. Because one of the things that New Hampshire does try to do is equalize the data so that the value from one town to another is at least roughly equivalent. I mean, it's not gonna, it's never a straight comparison. You can't really compare a value of a home in Francistown to a value of a home in Peterborough or Manchester for that matter. You know, it's a lot of variables that don't get really easily accounted for. But if
Well, you know,
are you asking?
Even just to get the, not comparing us to other towns, but comparing the different kinds of housing. You know, he had some charts
within
in there.
Peterborough.
Within Peterborough, yeah.
Let me see if I can find a
so,
report
you
that
know,
does that.
2-family house, 3-family house, you know, apartments, commercial, retail, the assessed values of those. Might be interesting.
Thank you. We'll do manual hands. Who's got a hand? Oh, look.
Okay.
Mark.
What I understand about the assessed value is it comes from the town budget, and the town sets a budget, and then once you have a budget, you divide the budget, you know, on the property in the town. And that then you get a higher percentage if you have a higher budget and a lower. I may be wrong about that, but that's my understanding.
It's close. It's actually, that's how you arrive at the tax rate, is by taking the town's budget and then dividing that out over the assessed value of the community. You're spreading out the town's budget, the school district's budget, the county's budget, you know, our share of it, and our little share of the state education budget, and you spread it out over all the assessed value. And then that's how you get the tax rate. So I see Joanne Carr and Kate have their hands up.
So Joanne.
Yeah, thanks. DRA sets our tax rate. You know, we do set our budget, but DRA controls our tax rate, and it's based on how much debt we have and how much we're allowed to have. I just kind of, I think we're going in a deep dive in that
Yeah, we
direction.
don't need to go there.
But I wanted to talk about, just in terms of our little small group, was in also really taking the data granularly for Peterborough and maybe in our neighboring communities, which would be helpful because these large cities don't really relate. That the data that they're presenting doesn't really relate to us necessarily. So I think we should be taking it granularly, and also it's really out of context. So it comes back to that, you know, they're looking at cities. We're a town of 6,000 people. We're a very small town, and we don't have control over our tax structure. That's dictated by the state. So those were the points that I was trying to make. And as far as how much it costs to maintain a road over time, that relates to whether you charge upfront impact fees, and that's a whole other conversation. So I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you. Who was next? I
Kate.
saw Kate and then Carter. Kate, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm on. So first of all, it is in participants that you can do the hand raise thing if you want. You just click on participants and hand raise. So I think, so we were in a small group. It was Carol, Eddie bolted, he went somewhere else, but Carol Kraus and Nicole and I. And one of the things that, there were two things. One is that he talks about the confirmation bias, the way in which we kind of assume, as he says in his thing, actually just what you were talking about, like that we're not cities, and so therefore we tend to sort of differentiate ourselves. He finds this, Joe Minicozy in that thing, finds that in every city that they've gone to pretty much, or every area. So I think there's a difference of scale, but some of the things that I pulled out and that we pulled out are the questions, actually all three of us talked about this, of value per acre, which is probably a little different from tax rates and so forth, but it's, again, if you look at those visual graphics that are, you know, in those presentations, and as I say, I know we have this data. I've seen it for Hillsborough County and for Peterborough, so it seems like we can get it, and it has to do with, on some level, of value per acre, which gives us a kind of a snapshot of what's happening. As I remember from some of the towns that he talked about, you can see different areas that have higher value because they've done certain things. So I think it is a starting place, and we said this the last time too, if we could find it and get this data and maybe in that same kind of packaging for our town, it'll help us all see it and begin to have that conversation. And another concept that we pulled out of the presentations is the idea of long-term obligated cost, so that things like roads and things that we have to, you put them in at one point, but they, and we see this every time Seth talks about the road program for, you know, for the year, what is our long-term obligated cost for the approximately 80 miles of road that we have. So those are two things, two sort of concepts that came out that we talked about in our group.
Thank you, Kate. Carter?
Oh, I just, actually, I think, I don't,
You're
can
very
we just
faint.
skip over me for now? And
Can
just
you
move
turn
on?
your volume up, Carter, please?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Better?
Yeah,
Better,
okay, cool.
better.
Sorry, I think actually it's probably better if I just skip for right now and save what I was gonna say for later. Our group really just tried to catch up on what the materials were.
Great. I wanted to just talk about something that I found really interesting about the second one, the 202, was, you know, he first shows a graph for how different states tax, you know, how they collect taxes, right? And so there are 3 states in the country where primarily it's property tax, and New Hampshire is one of those. And he talks about how in the COVID pandemic, which is going to reflect pretty similarly to what happened in 2008, how right away what you see is this drop in retail, right? And so what happens is people's incomes are affected right away, and the sales tax is impacted right away. So immediately those places where they collect taxes for income and sales take a hit. And so, but then what he said was the places where it's just property tax, it's usually a year to two later where you see the impact economically on those homes, where the prices start to drop and the values of the homes drops. So what I was thinking about was how, in one sense, are we better off because we have just a property tax, but not really? But it's really kind of like in the short term, as we're thinking about what we're dealing with our business community in our downtown, the first part is that our business community takes this hit, right? And that's the first part of it. But that as we go forward, we're going to see this really impact people's ability to pay their tax bill and people's ability to sell their homes for what they had hoped for or not, and so then I'm thinking, well, how we create policy has to really have more to do with where are we intelligently going to make investments in development, and how are we going to help think about housing policy for the long term if in fact we're going to end up having to deal with what we're dealing with for the next few years. I'm just thinking, my wheels are turning. I don't know what the answer is, but I think this isn't a straightforward, if you just apply a model right now, that it's gonna give us what we need. I think we're in this changing environment where things just keep shifting, and we're gonna have to deal with the reality of all of that. But it's mostly, I'm thinking about the economics, because the money that we use to fund our government and the money that we invest in infrastructure and all of those things, we're not necessarily going to have for a bit, because it's going to take us a while to recover. So that's what I'm thinking about after all this. Who's next?
Carl.
Carl.
That's Karen, that's exactly from that 202 webinar, the one thing that I thought was kind of most interesting, because a lot of it seemed to be just kind of following up on what was done in the first one. And of course, seeing New Hampshire named and property tax having this ability to have revenue for the town kind of be stable relative to like the last recession or something. But on the other hand, we all know the long-term problem with the fact that all of it is based on property tax. So I think that's beyond the scope of this housing task force. Like Joanne said, we can't control the way taxes are done in this state, at least not that way, not from this group. But that's the thing that really caught my eye. And the other thing was this whole idea of dollars per acre for determining, how a town, city, whatever, should be looking at how to raise revenue at first principle. And I just, again, wondered how that, and even infrastructure, how that applied to this town. I know Kate just said about people saying, well, we're different. And so I'm not saying we're different, but I do wonder how it applies to us. I really would like to see an ability to take the kind of models they were using and see here and what it looks like. Because I have no idea, like with when we went through the whole thing with the overlay 2, I wondered, it made sense to use the track of what we had for water and sewer to be a basis for developing density. But given the neighborhood I live in, which was in that zone, it's like there's already a built environment here. And I never really understood how you're going to build it out and have it be different unless you tore down the neighborhoods that are here. So those are the questions that come to my mind in this.
Ivy?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl.
Well,
you're muted.
Go ahead, Ivy.
Thank you.
Two things. We do have a map available of the parts of Peterborough which have the greatest value per acre. They're where you would expect them to be. The second thing is that one of the things about using our existing infrastructure to create gradual increases in density as a way of supporting our tax base means that we will have changes in places. They won't be sudden, but they will happen, and they will happen in ways of somebody cutting off their side yard and putting another little house there, or someone taking a big house like I'm doing currently right this minute and turning it into a 3-family. So there's never an expectation or in fact an outcome where you tear down the built environment and start over denser. Some places have done that and it's been a really bad plan, and we don't recommend you do it ever again. Looking at your existing infrastructure and identifying where you have capacity and allowing your growth to be there gives you the best chance of supporting your town in an effective way. And as all of you have heard me tell the story of Vine Street versus the 4-lot subdivision in the rural district. Vine Street is a net gain to the town of $2.6 million in value with no additional piping, plowing, salting, sanding, ditching, or paving. A 4-lot subdivision on an 800-foot long cul-de-sac in the rural district will never pay enough in taxes to the town to repave that road once. Well, not never. If you put all the money they pay for the public works portion of their town tax bill in a cigar box, and you didn't salt, sand, plow, ditch, mow, or pull a tree out of the road, you would, after about 35 years, the last time I ran the numbers, have enough to do a skim coat on that 800-foot long cul-de-sac. So that's just the way it is. And we can choose to continue to develop in the rural district and understand that that brings with it a bunch of costs, or we can choose to develop where we already have infrastructure and allow gradual change in those places.
Thank you. Thanks, Ivy. Who's next? Mark, you have another question?
Oh, you're
Take
muted,
yourself
Mark.
off mute.
Yeah, what struck me about what everyone's sort of talking about here is that, no, I forgot what I was going to say, that we have to have smaller, this is what I wanted to say, that rather than have a large development with like 50 houses where they all decline at the same time in value and they all need to be replaced at the same time, it would be better that individual houses that are developed at different times exist in a sort of multifaceted way rather than everything the same at the same time. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mark.
Eddie has his hand up.
Eddie?
Oh,
You're still
can't hear you, Eddie.
Still muted. There
Hello?
you go. Yep.
There we go.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, in our group, we're kind of, one thing that stuck out to us was how the road has kind of a flat square cost per square footage that needs to be maintained. I think in the video, the first one, it was $22. And how on that same road, there can be different properties valued differently per square foot. One example was like a building at the $34 versus the parking lot right next to it that was only $1.40, and how that subsidy, or so that parking lot's basically subsidized, because it's gonna, like how Avi was saying, it's never gonna make up the cost to repave the road that it's a part of. And then to kind of echo what Joanne had said earlier about state tax policy and things like that, in the video, it was like, that was like kind of like the key, one of the first key things that the guy said was people need to be literate on tax policy. So I think that's kind of one of the things I'm excited about, is to specifically become more literate on the New Hampshire's tax policy as pertains to the property tax, and how that applies to the revenue of the town.
Great. Thanks, Eddie. Jim.
Is it possible that our tax structure being based entirely on property actually increases that imbalance that Ivy points out? That if we had people that were paying some form of income tax because they lived in this fancy house, they earned a lot of money, that money would actually come into town and offset those values. I'm just wondering, is New Hampshire, are we working with one hand tied behind our back as a result of that structure? And we should just need face facts. So obviously, we're not going to change it, but could that be one of the factors that makes what she says more extreme for us than it might be in another place?
If I can just jump in a little bit on that. I mean, yes, the vast majority of our income does come from property tax. There's no question about that. But approximately 10% of our income, of our revenues for the town of Peterborough, come from other sources such as the state gas tax, the share of the meal and rooms taxes that are assessed. So it's not entirely property taxes, but it is the vast majority of it.
Yeah, thank you. Valerie.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Sure.
While we're talking about all the details, I just wanted to offer that one of the things that I observed while I was doing the homework is that in none of the examples did the municipal entity work on its problems alone. There was maybe, in some cases, there was a public-private partnership to resurrect an old building rather than tear a building down, or a partnership with a local bank to try to solve a neighborhood. So I just wanted to leave the door open to the fact that there may be ways for Peterborough to not have to change the way it operates or change the way it uses its revenue all by itself.
That's a great point. Thank you, Valerie. Who haven't we heard from tonight? Anybody want to weigh in?
Carter.
I mean, something I want to point out, like, really quick, is that I keep hearing us make a distinction between the property tax and the income tax, like they're not ultimately the same thing anyways. The difference between a property tax and an income tax is that the property tax has this layer of promise that's not necessarily met unless the income is there. So like we can say, oh yeah, we can be assured that we're going to get all these property taxes, but if all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of people who suddenly stop working and stop being able to pay their property taxes, you run into a problem where you're not actually able to pay the concrete tax that you were expecting. So to pretend that there's not a relationship between income and paying a property tax is just, I just worry that if we don't pay attention to that, we could be missing a pretty key component. And to the point of income tax, I mean, I would imagine that there are many high earners that I can't say this for myself because I can't verify it, but I would imagine there are a lot of high earners that are continuing to earn high without being severely economically impacted by this virus. There may be people like that in town, there may not be, but if we had an income tax, we'd be seeing a lot more money from those people as opposed to likely what they are paying right now, which is a lot less through property tax. So I just, it's like, and then again, I think that's probably all I should say on that for now.
Okay, so Kate's got a question to the group. How well or poorly did Peterborough do coming out of the 2008 crisis.
In terms of, I guess, in terms of what, Kate?
So we're talking about like the big hit, you know, that flatter or less flat curve. I think it was Karen talked about seeing that in the thing, sort of so we're just talking about like, okay, did Peterborough take a big hit in 2008? Did it suffer really badly? And then it's coming back up. Was it a more of a mild cushion?
I
Like,
wouldn't say we suffered really badly. We did take a hit. I'd have to go back and pull out some reports, but we did do some pretty big revaluations in 2010 that brought down the total assessed value quite a bit. And that was across the board, residential, commercial. It really touched everything. And it took a number of years to get back up to where we were prior to the meltdown. So yes, there was an impact here. It was nowhere near as severe as it was in other parts of the state or other parts of the country. New Hampshire did surprisingly well. We're fairly well insulated up here in terms of property values as compared to, say, you know, Las Vegas and that area down there. They got pretty well wiped out. So
that's kind of what I'm asking, I guess. So thank you.
Yeah, I also think, and this is what I've heard is that the other thing in terms of our business community, you know, that we had a fairly high vacancy rate after there was a hit to the business community in 2008. So and we have built over the course of, you know, really the last 10 years, you know, have done so much to fill our businesses and to become a more healthy community all the way around. You know, we have very few empty houses. We have, you know, our businesses are full. Our people are employed, you know, mostly have been until now, right? So now what we're dealing with is, you know, a challenge that everybody's going to deal with, but how well we can come through it will largely depend on how we all respond, you know, coming through. Some things are out of our control, right? But other things aren't. If we do have income and we do continue to say support our local businesses and help them get through, and we support our nonprofit community, and we find the ways that we can to support each other, right, to help people who are having a hard time get through, then we'll do better. But I think we don't know the full impact of what this is going to mean for us. And I know that Nicole and I talked today, and there's, you know, work being done on the budget in terms of, you know, changes that are going to need to be made. If in fact the projections, you know, for next year's budget, we may have to make some adjustments. So it's just, I think we have to plan that we're going to have less income to deal with because people have less income.
Did the budget actually change during those years? You know, people may not have defaulted, but they might have, at town meeting, they might have voted down things that they might have said yes to in other years.
We did bring forward some very conservative budgets in those years. The budgets always passed. Every year they passed. And we had a lot of flat budgets or very, very moderate increases. We did have some items that were completely taken out of the capital improvements plan, including, you know, most notoriously the library and the fire station and the public works garage. And that's why you're seeing those all come back, or how those all came back again, because we waited to be solidly through the recovery period and into, you know, more general prosperity to start bringing them forward. So there we are. And we're definitely, like Karen started alluding to, we're looking at everything. We as you know, we haven't gone to town meeting yet. It did get postponed. Deliberative session's been rescheduled to June, assuming that more than 10 of us can get into the same room at the same time by middle of June. And then our town meeting is, you know, our complete town meeting will be in July. We've moved everything to the ballot already. There will be no open session at town meeting for the first time. So we're in the process of relooking at the budget, seeing if there's any changes that we need to make. If we do so, it would be at this point, we're expecting to do it at the deliberative session. So Stay tuned. That's something that we're going to be talking about a lot internally, and we won't really be ready to, make any proposals in public at a select board meeting or in the paper or anything until probably the middle of next month.
Right. Kate?
Yeah, my question was kind of like a historical perspective, of a decade and something where we took a punch, and then now we have the fact of virtually a decade or 12 years since that to see what we did. I certainly know one of the things that relates to the work of this group is the slides that we saw when George Regan and those people were talking about how slow the housing restart has been nationally and in our area too. And so again, given the fact that this task force has a broader purview in terms of planning and thinking, I want us to think about the decade that happened and which began with a kind of a cataclysm. We have another decade that's beginning with a cataclysm. Are there things that we can learn from that? Are ways that we can advance on that? And particularly with the question of housing. What housing is going to happen, COVID or no COVID, but we're going to have to be responsive, to those L's: labor, laws, land, et cetera, the 5 L's. So how do those impact what the kind of decisions we're going to start to make now and in the, so short term, medium term, and long term kind of planning? I just want to keep housing that way.
That's
and
great.
One of the things that we definitely learned during the downturn, during the recession, was recession's a great time to plan. That is really a time where you can get a lot of planning work done, because a lot of other things are on hold. So, taking the time to breathe and look at what you have already on the books and maybe rewriting some chapters of your master plan, or, relooking at, some zoning and what needs to be cleaned up. That's when you do it. That's when you get the most effective work done, rather than under the gun with a bunch of developers coming in trying to bang on the door and get stuff done.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, we're getting close to 8:30, so I want to just take a moment to.
Ivy, you had your hand up. Did you want to? You're all set?
Nope.
Okay.
You're good. Okay, thanks. So what I wanted to do is just talk about a next meeting, next steps we've been doing. Did this work for you guys? A nod would work, just generally. I know it's not perfect, but I love this. I loved our ability to go into small meeting rooms and come back. That was really interesting. So what I want to say to the group is the resources that we're looking at, the materials we're looking at, are those that we are either finding to provide or you, the members of this task force, are putting forward. So that is always an invitation that's open to you. If you come across something, to send it to me, and we'll figure out, how to package things together that make sense so we can have the next conversation. But I really appreciate that everybody took the time, or most of us did, to be able to watch the presentations and took the time to come on tonight to talk about it. So we'll do another one of these in a month. We'll just say to stick to the monthly, I think, because that seems to work. The way I'd like, yes.
Normally I couldn't be here at a meeting on Wednesday night if we were doing things, because I have a rehearsal on Wednesday night. So can you change the nights so it's not always Wednesday?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and I know there's some other people that haven't joined us because of Wednesday isn't great. Ivy, do you have your hand?
I did. One thing, as I said in my small group, Joe Minicosi has done a value per acre analysis of Hillsborough County, of which Peterborough is part. I don't know how much it would cost to have Joe do a presentation for the Housing Task Force on the information he has about Peterborough, but it might be money well spent. Just a thought.
Okay. Great. I'll follow up with you about that.
Does he have a report that we could just read, Ivy? I don't know.
That looks like a no.
He did an analysis of all of Hillsborough County for the Hitchcocks in Manchester. And he has the information to do all of New Hampshire. He was supposed to be in New Hampshire 2 weeks ago doing sort of the world tour and presenting the information that he has. Obviously, that did not happen, and I'm not sure where New Hampshire Housing Finance was backing that. Plan New Hampshire, I think Taylor, what's his bucket, Caswell, I think he chipped in some money on that. But I don't know where that is now. However, there's nothing to stop us from making contact and saying, how much would it cost for you to talk about the information that you have about Peterborough, and, you know, offer your thoughts.
Joanne's got her hand up.
Joanne.
Oh, hi, thank you. I'm curious where, I'm always for more research and development and deliberative dialogue. Where's the funding coming from?
So we had some money that we've held over in the planning in the OCD budget. So we have some of that left. So
was it encumbered, or aren't we in deficit spending at this point?
a piece of it was encumbered, and some of it was in this year's budget. And then there's a little bit of grant money that we've been using, that Karen got a grant from CDFA, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So we've been using some of that as well for this process. I'm not sure where we are with the current budget, so I'd have to take a closer look at that.
Yeah, but it's the money that we would spend would be whatever we had raised through the grants for the process of this group. So not from the general budget.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Are we going to schedule a meeting sometime the week of the 25th of May?
We most likely.
Well,
Does
do you
that
do
work?
it now? You want to do it now?
No. Tyler?
Nicole, will Danica be on board by the time we have our next Housing Task Force meeting?
She'll be starting around the last week of May, so I'm not entirely sure if she'll be ready to go just yet, but I'll see if she's available, so she can at least listen in, if not be able to contribute.
I was also thinking that there are some newer faces of, running for planning board. Perhaps they should be invited to this so they have an idea that this is going on as well.
And I would, yeah, thank you, Tyler. And I would say that if anybody is planning to invite anybody else to the Zoom and to be part of this, that you just send their contact information to me so that we kind of know who's coming on, and I can give them some background information about the group ahead so that we just don't, you know, so because we don't, the link is really meant for the task force. It's not an open, you know, open invitation to everyone at this point. Just because, and I think it's just important for folks who join us to understand, you know, like we did at the beginning, kind of setting up the meeting, what we're here to do and what our group agreements are. And here's, you know, just tapping people in to the process. So making sure they have what they need. And we're certainly welcoming new members. I just want to make sure they come in feeling comfortable with what we're doing. And
Joanne,
as we, go ahead.
Sorry. Joanne, is your hand still up from before, or is it up again?
Well, I was going to type into chat, but I'm such a terrible typist. I'm sorry. I mean, honestly, total dyslexia there. What's the criteria for joining then, Karen? And I'm looking over to you because I think you're over there on my right side.
Up here on mine. The criteria is to have an interest, but it's not about keeping people out, but I just want to make sure that we're, we've always wanted to be inclusive. So if there are folks who feel like this, they really want to get involved in the conversations and be part of it, we want to include. So I just want to include and make sure people have the information they need to get involved. So we've never tried to be an exclusive club. It's really been like, people want to be part of the conversation, we want them in.
Super.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay. So we're getting close to wrapping up, and what I'd love to do is have folks share whatever gift you got tonight. Did someone give you a gift? Do you feel like you got a gift? Is there a gift you can share? Because I remember that's something we love and it's important for us, and I want to end that way. So if you got a gift, you can we can take everybody off mute and just share. That'd be fine. So who would
All
like
at
to
once?
share?
We should just like all at once.
Anybody?
I think the gift is your new role, Karen.
Thank you,
It's a
James.
gift.
Very sweet.
Tyler.
Yeah, Nicole, thank you for the gift of figuring out that the separating out into
The
groups.
breakout rooms, yeah.
Breakout rooms.
I agree. That's great.
Yeah, that's my gift too.
Valerie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I feel like I got a virtual hug from everybody. It can be lonely, and it's good to see your smiling faces.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. My gift is seeing my friends again, so it was very nice.
Peter?
I'd like to thank Ivy for the gift of possibly getting the data we need to find out in some granular detail where our revenue comes from. And from that, we can see what our opportunities and vulnerabilities are as this COVID thing rolls out.
Thank you. Mark?
The gift that I had was just to be assured that we're going to make things better, and that we won't just do what we've always done because we've always done it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll think about it, we'll talk about it, and whatever we do will be better than the past.
Thank you,
That's
Mark.
my gift.
Thank you. Jim?
It's just good to see all these concerned people all talking so well and so intelligently, and I think the kindness and the information is really good. So I appreciate all of you. It's great.
Thanks for joining the group.
Yeah.
Who else?
Storm?
I just want to say thank you for the gift of letting me drop in, and I'm a little bit behind, but I'm just happy to see so many of you caring about Peterborough and housing. So yeah, thank you.
And Storm and Jim, I have your email, but Storm, if I can get your email so I can kind of put you on the list so you get invited and you get the information that the rest of the group is getting, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Storm, I just wanted to say thank you to Storm for joining us in this incredibly crazy time. It's really nice that you took the time to join us.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I will just thank you all for the time that you are giving to this in the midst of so many other things that are pulling on us emotionally. And, I just really appreciate your willingness and your vulnerability and your humanness. And I so appreciate all of you being part of this with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right. So you'll get a note from me about next meeting. And James, I'm not scheduling tonight because I don't want to have to go through everybody's calendars. We'll just I'll send it out and hopefully it'll work. It won't be a Wednesday though. How about that?
So, Karen, why not do a doodle poll or something like that?
I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. I'll
just defining a meeting night.
Okay, we will. I'll give you a couple options.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Take good care. Stay safe. Stay well.
Bye.